friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie 0494. In the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. So real quick, y'all, real quick before we get into the video. We are currently at 2.3K subscribers, right? And when we get to 2.5K subscribers, I'm gonna change our intro up just a little bit, just the visuals, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep the same song. And speaking of same song, because I have seen people in the comment section asking, like, who is this song by? Where did this song come from? You know what I'm saying? And long story short, short story long, that is my song, my brothers and sisters. That is me saying, 1, 2 stacks coming for you. You know what I'm saying? I made that song back in like 2017, and it's called Child's Play. But like I said, man, I'm gonna keep the same song and I'm gonna change the visuals up just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's time for our intro to get a refresher. So be on the lookout for that once we hit 2.5K subscribers. But I digress. I hope y'all doing excelente out there today. And I'm glad that you came on back to the channel once again to fuck with the bean. And today, it is another Sunday. So y'all know that we about to go back to the man. So y'all know that we about to go back to the myth. So y'all know that we about to go back to the legend, MrBallen. MrBallen Sundays, y'all. And the title of the video is Body Snatching Forest Creates Internet's Deepest Rabbit Hole. Now, if it's one thing I hate unsolved mysteries, and I hate freaking rabbit holes, man, because when you're going down a rabbit hole and you just digging and digging and digging, it's like you never can stop, and then you be looking this way like maybe this can happen, maybe this a possibility, then you look the other way, you be like, no, that ain't a possibility because this can be a possibility. Then you start digging and digging, and before you know it, man, you done dug so much and you still ain't reached the end of the freaking hole. And MrBallen says this is the deepest internet rabbit hole, so I'm very excited to hear this story. But before we hear this story, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We back to the man, the myth, the legend, MrBallen. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
Today's story is a spooky mystery out of China. Now, it's a little bit complicated. However, if you stick it out till the end and you hear about what authorities find up on that mountain, you will have a wild internet rabbit hole to go explore. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please move into the apartment directly above the Like Button's apartment, and then make it a habit to sprint on your treadmill every morning at 3 a.m. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. At 5 a.m. on September 30th, 2008, a 61-year-old man named Xian Tiesheng finished getting dressed inside of the bedroom that he shared with his wife in the city of Beijing, China. After he finished getting dressed, Xian reached down and scooped up his backpack off the floor that was already packed, and then as quietly as he could, he kind of tiptoed around the bed to his wife's side to give her a kiss goodbye. Xian was going to be heading out to a local mountain that day for a day hike. And so Xian, he gets next to his wife and he bends down to kiss her, and right as he does that, he accidentally wakes her up. And so his wife opens her eyes and she looks up at him, and Xian just says, I love you. He gives her a kiss and he tells her, hey, I'll be back tonight before midnight. And so his wife, she kind of groggily said okay, and she grabbed his hand and squeezed it, and she told him that she loved him, and then she fell back asleep, and moments later, Xian had left the bedroom and walked out the front door. Xian's home was only a couple of blocks away from the train station, and since he needed to ride a train and then also a bus to get to this local mountain that was about an hour-and-a-half journey away, the train station was his first stop. And so Xian, as he walked towards the station, he was all smiles. He was really excited about this day. So Zhen was retired, but he had spent his whole life teaching geography at Beijing No. 5 Middle School. And he was a very passionate teacher, but the thing he was most passionate about, that he routinely really pushed on his students, in some ways more than geography, was his love of nature. In fact, Xian loved nature so much that when he was not teaching, he basically spent all of his off time out in nature going for hikes. That was his thing. And today, Xian was especially excited about his hike because he was hiking one of his favorite trails. It was located on Mount Miaofeng, which is a mountain located 30 miles to the northwest of where Xian lived. And this mountain was quite famous because of all the sacred and ancient temples that kind of dotted the mountain all over the place. And then also there were all these beautiful roses, like the flower, that would bloom all over the mountain in the summer. And so it's just this totally strikingly beautiful place. And normally Xian would actually hike up this trail and then actually camp out on Mount Miaofeng, mostly because on the summit there was this incredible view of downtown Beijing. And at night, the view is like spectacular with the city all lit up. But
yes, that is a beautiful view, my brothers and sisters. But I just gotta say, shout out to hikers, man. Like, real talk, y'all. I got some type of, and it may be like a weird admiration for them, and the reason I do, because hikers really freaking love nature. Like, they love that shit. And I'm so much on the opposite end. Like, not that I hate nature, but I would never freaking go hiking out in the woods, climbing up mountains and being out there all hot in the damn sun with all these God knows what damn animals that could be lurking. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, I just don't have no desire to ever hike in my life so much. To people who actually love doing it, it's just like, salute, man. Like, damn, man, just your passion for it, I really do appreciate it. Y'all get what I'm saying, man? So shout out to Xian. I think he about to get killed, though. I'm gonna go and put that prediction out there. Now I'm just wondering in my head, is it gonna be by a human or is it gonna be by one of these damn creatures out there? I don't know, but let's see.
on this particular day, Jian knew an overnight stay was not possible because he had to be back home by the next day because it was his mother's 90th birthday. And he was very close with his mother, and he was not going to miss that. And so Jian eventually made it to the train station. He bought his ticket, he boarded his train, and then he sat down in a seat. And as soon as he did, he opened up his bag and pulled out a stack of papers. For this hike, Jian had packed himself some food and water inside of his backpack. He also packed a newspaper called the Beijing Youth Daily, and he brought along his diary. But his diary was a little bit unique. Zhen, because he loved nature so much and didn't like the idea of wasting anything, what he would do when he was a teacher at Beijing No. 5 Middle School, he would just take scrap paper and start writing on that. And he would compile all his scrap paper into these sort of diaries that he would keep. And so the reason he did that was primarily because he was so in love with nature, he hated the idea of wasting anything. And so Jian passed the time on the train by writing in his diary, aka his stack of scrap paper, and also reading this newspaper. And Jian knew he really needed to read the entire newspaper pretty quickly, because by the time he got to the mountain, he was going to do what he always did, which is he would bring a newspaper with him on a hike, and as he walked, he would take out a page periodically and tie it to a tree, kind of marking his way. That way, when he turned around and came back down, he would have his path marked, because Jian did not always walk on a clearly marked trail, and so this was his way of not getting lost. And so Jian would ride the train car, and then he would get off and he would board a bus, and then finally, right around 7 a.m., that bus would come to a stop in the tiny village of Changfang, which is located right at the base of Mount Miaofeng. And so Jian grabbed his backpack, he hopped off the bus, and then began walking through the village towards the mountain. And then by about 7:20 a.m., so not long after Jian had left the bus, He was almost up to Mount Miaofeng when he pulled out his cell phone and he called his cousin. It was a brief conversation, and all Jian really wanted to do was just to make sure his cousin was going to be around the next day for Jian's mother's birthday. And the cousin said he would, and so Jian told him, okay, I'm going hiking today, and I will see you tomorrow. And then he hung up. And then, only a couple minutes later, Jian disappeared into the beautiful forests of Mount Miaofeng. A few years ago,
and I feel like GN have freaking disappeared forever, y'all. But one thing I can say, and like I said, man, I never had no desire to go hiking. I'm not a professional. I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to hiking. But one thing I can say is I just feel, and we have watched so many videos from so many of these different channels, y'all, about people who go hiking and go missing or get killed or whatever. But the one thing that always bothered me in these type of stories is the people who go freaking hiking by themselves. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if you're going hiking, you should at least bring one friend. You know what I'm saying? Somebody with you. I prefer you bring 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of your brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? Like I said before, my bean team, if I was to go hiking, all us going hiking together. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be as many of us as possible. So that's just one thing that always get on my nerves with these type of stories. Like, dude, you never know what the freak can happen out there and you by yourself, man. You get injured or something or whatever. Now you stranded with nobody to help you get to safety. I don't know, but let's go.
So Jian's wife did not expect to hear from Jian at any point that day because she knew he would have terrible cell phone service up on the mountain. But she did expect her husband to be home on time. He had told her that morning before he left that he would be home that night before midnight. And if you knew Jian, you knew this guy was never late. He said, I'm going to be someplace at a certain time. He would be there. So when 10 p.m. rolled around that night and still Jian was not back yet and he had not called, Jian's wife was actually not worried because she was thinking, okay, well, it's 10. He'll be home in the next couple of hours because he said he'd be here by midnight tonight and he will be here tonight. And so she went to bed expecting to wake up and see Jian in bed with her in the morning. But the next morning when she woke up, Jian was not in bed, so he did not come home, and so his wife immediately was very concerned and began calling Jian's family, and nobody knew where he was. And so that day, the family went to the police, and they reported Jian missing. The local police immediately organized a search for Jian. However, they knew this was going to be a very challenging search. Mount Miaofeng is not some enormous mountain by any means. It's a decent-sized mountain, but, you know, it's really known for having these paths that twist and turn all over the place, so it's pretty easy to get lost. And then also there's a whole bunch of sheer cliff faces kind of all over the place, so if you're not paying attention, you could literally just walk off a ledge. So in short, this is a dangerous and confusing place. And at the same time that this search was happening out on the mountain, the police were also in contact with Jian's cell phone service provider to see if they could track down Jian's cell phone, because obviously if they could find that, they might find Jian too. But the only way a cell phone can be tracked is if the cell phone is on, because when it's on, it connects to the nearest cell phone tower, and that's how these service providers are able to tell where these phones are. They look to see which tower it's connected to. But when Jian's cell phone service provider looked for his phone, they quickly determined his phone was off. So unless the phone came back on again, they would not be able to locate the phone.
And that's a red flag to me too, y'all. The fact that his phone is off would lead me to believe that somebody has done something to him, because not no freaking bear or a freaking mountain lion, they ain't gonna damn turn his freaking cell phone off. You know what I'm saying? If he was attacked by an animal, they not gonna freaking turn us. They don't know how to hold a power button down. You know what I'm saying? That would make me think that it's a person who have done this. But at this point, y'all, I don't know. Let's go.
However, they were able to pull all of Jian's cell phone signal history up until his phone was turned off. And what they found in the signal history is the day before, so the day Jian went missing, his cell phone was on at 4 p.m. that evening, and he received a phone call at 4 p.m. And the service provider was able to see that when this phone call came in, Jian's cell phone was not where they thought it would be. It was not high up Mount Miaofeng. It actually was near the base of the mountain. And when police reached out to the person who had called Jian at 4 p.m., They discovered it was just a friend of Jian's, and this friend said that Jian said he was coming down the mountain now and he'd be home soon. So this new information did basically line up with what Jian had told his family he'd be doing that day, just a quick day hike. Although again, they kind of expected it to be a little bit longer. It seemed a little odd he'd be down the mountain by 4 p.m., but still, this basically lined up with what they thought he was doing. However, this new information did not help explain what happened to Jian. Like, why was he missing? The expectation was he must have gotten lost or hurt or something up on this mountain. Maybe he's stranded somewhere and can't go anywhere. But now, based on this phone call, it sounded an awful lot like Jian was not even on the mountain when he disappeared. So where was he? Police had already checked all the bus stations and train stations in the area, to see if maybe Jian took a different way home or something. But when they went to all these different stations, there was no evidence that Jian had been to any of them. And there was another problem. Members of Jian's family told the police about Jian's habit of tying newspapers to trees to mark his trail as he hiked. And the family told the police that Jian did this every single time he hiked. And his wife told the police that for sure she knew her husband had brought along a copy of that newspaper. So by all expectations, there should be markers up on that mountain, literally leading searchers to wherever Jian went. But after an entire day of searching Mount Miaofeng, they didn't find a single newspaper anywhere.
Okay, now I'm at the point where I don't even know if she ain't even went up on the goddamn mountain, my brothers and sisters. He probably got kidnapped or something before he even made his ascend up the freaking mountain. That what it seemed like. He ain't leave him no paper trail and able to get back up down the mountain. So how I said, man, I hate freaking rabbit holes, because now it's like, dude, do we even know he went on the mountain? And if he did, why was his phone off? And you can make the argument that maybe his phone died, but we know for sure that he wouldn't turn his phone off on purpose unless somebody else did it. It's just a lot of different things already, and we ain't even halfway through it. So let's keep going.
The next several days, this big search for Jian continued, but nothing was found. That is, until October 7th, so 1 week after Jian had vanished. On that day, Jian's cell phone service provider noticed that Jian's cell phone had suddenly turned back on. And the phone was not on or near Mount Miaofeng. Instead, it was located 36 miles away from the mountain at a train station called Beijing West Railway Station. Now, the cell phone was only on for a couple of seconds, but it was on long enough for the provider to confirm that it really was in that location. And so the police immediately dispatched a team to go to Beijing West Railway Station and see if they could find Jian. But when they got there, Jian was not there, his phone was not there. They looked at all the security footage, there was no sign of Jian. They searched the surrounding areas. Nothing. And on this day, at basically the same time that police are at this railway station trying to make sense of, what's going on with the cell phone, a villager from Chanfang village, which is that little village that sits at the base of Mount Miaofeng, came forward with a very strange story. He said on the day that Jian disappeared, this villager was at his little shop. He sold walnuts to hikers that were making their way towards Mount Miaofeng. It was basically like snacks for the hike. And he sees this guy walking up through the village towards the mountain, and he looked exactly like Jian, because now Jian's face was on the news and this villager had seen it, and so he felt like he had seen Jian. And so this villager said, this guy who looked exactly like Jian, he walked up and actually stopped at this villager's shop to buy some walnuts. And this villager and this man who looked like Jian, they just chatted for a few minutes. And at some point, this guy who looked like Jian, asked the villager, hey, these are great, but where else can I buy walnuts? I want to buy other types of walnuts and bring them back to my family. And so this villager was like, oh yeah, well, the best walnuts in all of Beijing are actually located about 30 miles away at the base of another mountain. It's called Tietua Mountain, and there are vendors over there who sell the best walnuts. So that's your answer right over there. And then after the villager said this guy who looked just like Jian, it's like everything changed for him. It's like his expression changed, his tone changed. It's like he's been given this information that's changed his life, about these walnuts. And he says to the villager, okay, I'm gonna go there right now. And without saying anything else, This man just turned and began quickly walking away from the walnuts, back through town, back towards the bus stop. So away from Mount Miaofeng. In theory, this guy is going to the bus to what? Commute 30 miles to this other mountain, Tiatua Mountain, to get these walnuts?
And that's what I'm saying, man. Do y'all believe that story from this dude that was selling these walnuts, Bean Team? Because so now we supposed to believe that Sheehan then just said, F going up the mountain, I'm finna travel 30 more miles away just to go to another mountain at the base of it to these places so I can get me some good walnuts. Like, is that what we supposed to believe right now? Or is that man full of SHIT? You know what I'm saying, man? I don't know, y'all. It's just like that's another part of the freaking rabbit hole that they opened up. And now we got to go down that way. Now we got to think about that possibility. Man, this is crazy.
I mean, the villager does not know this guy, but even he felt like this is bizarre. This guy comes up, he's buying snacks to go hike Mount Miaofeng. He seems really excited about it. And I offhandedly mention these walnuts, and he's like, boom, I'm out of here. I'm going to go 30 miles to this other mountain to get these walnuts. It just seemed weird. And then when police spoke to Jian's family about this new information, they would learn that Jian did not have a special interest in walnuts, and neither did his family. And even if there was a reason why Jian just really wanted these walnuts, he would not have had time in that day to take the bus 30 miles to Tiatua Mountain, get these walnuts, go 30 miles back, and hike up Mount Miaofeng, because he can't stay the night. He needs to come back tonight in order to go to his mother's birthday party the next day. So it just made no sense. But this walnut thing was basically the only lead police really had, because everything else was a dead end. And so they decided to shift their search area from Mount Miaofeng to Tiatua Mountain. And pretty much right away, they saw something that gave them hope that Jian could be here. They found pages from the Beijing Youth Daily newspaper tied to trees on the mountain. And when they looked more closely at the newspapers, they found the publication date of this newspaper lined up with the copy that Jian would have had with him on the day he vanished. And so, of course, the searchers just began following this trail of newspapers, hoping Jian would be at the other end. For 2 days, searchers very diligently followed this trail up the mountain. It kind of wound around, and they went pretty slowly because as they're moving, they're constantly checking everything around. They don't want to miss any clues. But finally, after 2 days of following this trail, they eventually found something. The newspapers led them to a campsite. Now, the campsite was abandoned, but there was a bed of hay, there were some used water bottles, and some toilet paper. And so just from the looks of it, this campsite looked relatively active, like somebody had been staying here recently for at least a day or two. And so it seemed pretty likely, based on everything else, that this was Jian's campsite. And pretty quickly, after searching the campsite, they found something that virtually guaranteed that this was his campsite. Authorities found this plastic bag that was sitting next to the bed, and inside of the bag was a piece of scrap paper from Beijing No. 5 Middle School. And on this scrap paper was a note. And the note said Jian had indeed hiked up Tiatua Mountain on September 30th. This would have been the day that he left, so the day he disappeared. And then on his way down, he said he got lost and was forced to spend the night out here. And so that explained the campsite. And then on October 1st, so that would have been the day after he spent the night out here, he said he was going to attempt to follow the ridge line down the mountain to a nearby village to safety. And this note ended with the phrase, "Leaving this note here just in case. Love to everyone who passes by." Now, at first glance, this note was like amazing news, because suddenly it seemed totally possible that Jian was just fine. I mean, the way the note was written, it sounded like he was at least healthy and safe, albeit I'm sure he was not happy to be stuck up on a mountain, but, he loved being in nature, and so he seemed okay. And then he had a reasonable plan for how he was going to get out of there, follow the ridgeline, go down to a village, go to safety. But as the police analyzed this note, they noticed that some things were off about it. First of all, this note basically directly contradicts other facts of this case. Remember, cell phone records prove Jian got a phone call at 4 p.m. on the day he went missing from his friend, and his friend would report that Jian told him that he was coming down Mount Miaofeng and he'd be home soon. But according to the note they found, that was not possible because the note said Jian at 4 p.m. on September 30th, the day he went missing, he would have been on Tietua Mountain, either hiking up or being in the process of getting lost and, ultimately making that campsite where he camped out for at least one night. And
I forgot all about that part, y'all. Like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together with that, man. Somebody lying. Something is lying, man. Either the right side or the left side. Something ain't right, man. I don't know what the freak to believe. Where was Jian, man? Was he at the first mountain, or was he at the second mountain? Is this somebody fake who wrote this note? Is this Jian handwriting? That's what we need to find out. Is this his actual handwriting? I don't know. Let's go. This goddamn rabbit hole, MrBallen. Shit.
So in addition to this factual discrepancy with this note, another issue with the note was just the way it was written. Now, Jian's wife had a chance to look at the note, and she would say, that is my husband's handwriting.
Okay, well, that answer that question. That's his handwriting. Now, is it a freaking kidnapper who forced Jian to write this note or something? Let's see.
But the note contained a bunch of very strange language choices that just didn't make sense for Jian to be using. For example, this note, which really should have been a first-person point of view, Jian has gotten lost, he's by himself, he's writing to the world, kind of letting somebody know what's going on with him, and so it really should have been written in the first person. My name is Jian, I am lost, here's what I'm doing. But the note was written in the third person. Jian got lost on the mountain, and so he is going to camp out for the night, and tomorrow he's going to make his way out to safety. But despite being written in the third person, it did sound like somebody was talking about themselves. It did not feel like somebody else was attempting to document what Jian was doing. But by far, the weirdest part of this note was the tone shift that happened about halfway through. So the first half of this letter was written, albeit in the third person, but it was grammatically correct and sort of formal, like you would expect from a very well-educated retired teacher. But once you get to that second half of the note, the grammar started being really awkward, and then the very final line, which says, "Love to everyone who passes by," that actually sounds totally awkward in Chinese. So "love to everyone who passes by" is the translation into English, and that basically makes sense to us, like that's not an awkward phrase. But if you put it back in Chinese, it's so awkward. It would be like if I tried to say to you, "I take the bus to work," but instead I said, "To work, take bus." Right? Like I wouldn't say it that way, and it would immediately seem very awkward for anybody who knows me if I wrote or said something like that. And so this last line stood out so much that actually police and friends and family of Jian assumed he must have left that in there as like a secret message or a code, like a distress signal, especially when you consider the other weird factors around this note. But nobody could figure out what it meant. The day after this note was discovered, a searcher was up in the vicinity of Jian's campsite on Tietua Mountain, and they were walking around, kind of retracing their footsteps, looking for new places to search. When they turned a corner, and up ahead, they noticed there was this tree kind of hanging out over this rocky cliff. And dangling from the tree was something gray that looked sort of out of place. And so the searcher, sensing this could be a clue of Jian's whereabouts, he yelled out for other searchers in the area that he had found something, and then he took off running towards this thing to see what it was. And when he got up to the tree, he looked up and he saw it was a pair of sweatpants that had clearly been intentionally tied to this branch in the tree. And so the searcher, he reached up and grabbed one of the pant legs and kind of tugged on it. And when he did, all these white things began falling out of the pants and landing on the ground. And when the searcher stopped and looked down to see what they were, he couldn't believe it. It was a whole pile of human bones.
Oh.
However, they were not Jian's. In fact, nobody ever figured out who these bones belonged to or why they were stuffed inside of pants and tied to a tree on this mountain. But the discovery of these bones would open up a whole new mystery, because after these bones were found, all the searchers came over and basically just began combing the area near these bones, and the police began uncovering body after body after body. They found 2 more sets of human bones stuffed into pants and tied to trees, and they found the other bodies at the foot of a cliff, and also inside of this well, and inside of this cave. And so in total, authorities found 10 sets of human remains in the vicinity near Jian's campsite, but none of the human remains belonged to Jian. Officials were only able to identify a few of the bodies, and they were not able to figure out how they died or whether or not foul play was involved. But the discovery of those bodies did mean one thing for Jian's case. It meant, all these people had previously gone up Tietua Mountain before Jian went up and vanished. And when these other people went up the mountain, clearly something horrible happened to them, and we don't know what it is. Is there a killer on the loose? Is there some animal or creature out there that's taking people out? I mean, we don't know. But
and see, that's why at the very beginning, man, that's why I was like, man, shout out to everybody who like to go hiking. You know what I'm saying, man? Much love to you. I have admiration for you. But then when you listen to a story like this from MrBallen, it confirms why I feel the way I feel. I would never go out there. Like I said, man, it could be animals or it can be a freaking human out there that is doing craziness. Man, it's a lot. 10 freaking bodies. Man, I feel like she ain't got attacked by a serial killer, y'all. I think it's a serial killer out in that mountain. That's just my assumption right now. And we probably finna hear some more, even more crazy-ish. So let's hear it.
What started to happen since Xian went missing and his story was all over the news in China is that all these other hikers who've been on Tietua Mountain before have begun sharing their experiences when they hiked up Tietua Mountain, and some of their stories about what they've seen on that mountain are horrifying. One person said they were walking up the mountain, they had their partner with them who was a little bit farther back the trail, and so they're kind of walking up on their own, and the first person, as they're walking up the trail, suddenly sees this guy just kind of come out of nowhere wielding an axe, and he walks up to this person, and all he says is, "Are you alone?" And the hiker's like, "No, my partner's back there, they're coming up here, what's going on?" But the axe man, he basically acted like he didn't even hear their answer, and he just asked it again, "Are you alone?" And the hiker was like, "No, my partner's back there." And the axe man again just said, "Are you alone? Are you alone? Are you alone?" And this axe person kept doing that until the hiker and their partner just turned and ran. And then another hiker shared a story about how they were walking up a trail on Tietua Mountain, and at some point they lifted their head up, and he saw a little ways up the trail, kind of off the trail, so in the tree line, were all these people, like this group of strangers, just standing there motionless, kind of half behind trees, like they were kind of trying to hide themselves, but also not. And they were just staring at this hiker, unmoving, not speaking, just staring. And so the hiker, they look up and they see this, and they were so unnerved so quickly that they just turned and left, and they have no idea who those people were. And so,
okay, now I got the hills have eyes vibes, my brothers and sisters. This is the mountain have eyes vibes, man. Like, seriously, man. I said it was one serial killer up there in the freaking mountains. It's probably a group of them motherfuckers. If y'all ain't never seen The Hill Have Eyes, go check it out, man. It was a great freaking movie, and this seemed like the same case, but this time this is the sequel after the sequel. The Mountain Have Eyes. It's a group of people up there killing people, man. They probably eat them, and let me shut up, man. Let's go.
So obviously we have no way of verifying these other hikers' stories about what they saw on Tietua Mountain. But when you combine their testimony with Jian's story, it really makes you wonder, what's going on up there? The official search for Jian was called off at the end of October, so roughly 1 month after he vanished. But unofficially, the search for Jian continues to this day. However, they still have not found his body, and basically no real progress has been made. Before you go, I just want to...
The deepest rabbit hole in internet history, man. Like, dude, oh my God, I don't know what the freak to believe other than I feel like the most safe thing for us to believe, my brothers and sisters, is that it was a serial killer. Now, if you want to believe about it being a group of people, yes, I'm with you with that, as far as, because we got witnesses saying that they seen a group of people. But I just feel like more than anything, man, you ain't go find like animals a freak. If it was a mountain lion out there that had killed a couple of people, they ain't no way in the hell to freaking bones and stuff would be hanging from trees inside what it was in, like pants and stuff, gym pants or whatever MrBallen said. The damn bones of people was hanging from trees in human clothing. Like, a damn animal not doing that. So we can confirm that it's a human that was doing this, right? And we pretty much, I feel like, can confirm that it was a human who killed Shai Jin. I can't remember his name, man. Jin. Let's just call him Tien. But we can confirm that I feel like it was a human that killed him too, man. Like I feel, but the thing about it that make it so crazy is how he started off at one mountain, but he more than likely ended up at another mountain because of the papers and out of the diary and stuff that they found at this other mountain, and the freaking note that was in his handwriting. At one point, I was like, okay, is this his handwriting? I feel like that handwriting pretty much confirmed that he was at this other mountain. So I'm just like, my brothers and sisters, we just digging and digging down a freaking rabbit hole, man. All I can say is nobody else should go to that goddamn mountain. Point blank period. That damn mountain need to be shut off from human society, period. Because man, listen, man. Like I said, I believe it's a serial killer, but like really thinking that it could be a group of crazy mother out there in the wilderness, killing people, eating them. You know what I'm saying? Like some cannibals. The hill have eyes. The mountain have eyes. That stuff really is true out there in the world, y'all. Like these movies just don't be based off just the hypotheticals and just the what ifs, man. These movies be based off stuff that really be happening, and I really do feel more than likely that however he died and all those other people died, rest in peace to all of them, it was not by the hands of an animal, it was by the hands of a human. But I digress. I'm gonna go and let y'all go now, man. We have been here long enough, my brothers and sisters. I appreciate y'all coming on back as always. Before y'all leave, just please make sure that you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And come on back to here Tuesday, because I think we going back to the Lazy Man Masquerade. But until then, my friends, I also need y'all to remember this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.